All right, welcome. Happy Friday. Yeah, so we're gonna sit. Okay, we've got some height here. Sometimes I sit on a block with a blanket, other times it's 2 blankets, right? The factor is to have hips higher than knees and knees descending and anchored so they're not floating in the air. And then the sacrum, right, goes inward from the back. When we go inward, the sternum comes upward. So let's just set our arms up. So we'll take our shoulders, roll them back, guide the elbows back, and place the hands down. So when we turn the palms and face them down, we want the shoulders to continue to go back and down. Okay. We're going to look straight ahead, even when we close the eyes. We're still looking forward, we're looking at the back of our eyelids. And then we start to settle. I think the hips drop, the legs soften and anchor down. Shoulders are down. We soften around the face and the belly. And invite some breath, some longer breaths, breathing with awareness. Using the breath to open up some space inside of us. This is a time, it's a time to come inward into ourselves, setting everything else aside. Connecting. Preparing for our practice. For the practice that we follow is also very inward. All the adjustments come from inside with awareness of mind-body connection. Let's bring our hands together at heart center. Keeping the shoulders back and down as the hands come forward. The chest stays open as we drop the chin towards the chest. Keeping the face relaxed. Deepening our inward movement. We'll float the head to set back up on top. Allow the eyes to open slowly. And we'll bring our palms back down. So even just sitting here, when we arrange our sacrum and our shoulders and we introduce the breath, we start to open and spread more just from that. So let's come off of our prop and come to hands and knees. We'll take a few spinal waves. and really creating the foundation in our hands to begin with. So really spreading your fingers and moving the thumbs away from the index finger and then planting them firmly down into the mat. So feeling a deep connection evenly through the whole entire hand and having a pushing down of the palms. We're on the tops of the feet and the feet are behind the knees, and we'll lift the tailbone up. And when we do, the sacrum goes inward and the sternum goes forward, just like when we were sitting. And you can kind of pull your hands towards your knees and you'll feel a little bit more traction. And we have a little bit of a looking forward while keeping the back of the neck long. And you should feel tone in your arms. Squeeze your upper arms so you feel tone around those upper arms, around the outer shoulders. And then we'll start to pull the tailbone down. And when we do that, the sacrum pushes out. And that's what creates the flexion to begin. Eventually the head releases. And we're still pushing firmly down through the hands, pulling the tailbone and the sacrum down to spread the lumbar spine, allowing the head to just hang and open up through the back body. And we'll come to neutral. So tabletop back. We're going to tuck the toes behind us. We're going to firm the abdominals. So engage your abdominals and lift your knees a couple inches off of the floor. So sort of plank like. Squeeze your upper arms and hold. And then we'll gently let the knees come down and sit the hips back towards the heels, keeping the toes tucked. The ribs come to the thighs, and we'll walk the hands out and release the head down. So push your palms down and forward and squeeze the upper arms. Tone your upper arms. Push down and forward with the hands. When you do that, the chest moves closer to the thighs. And we'll lift the head, and we're going to shift the weight forward, bringing the shoulders over the wrists. And our hips are still kind of high to be in a modified plank. So keep your shoulders over your hips and then walk your knees back to come into a modified plank. Push the palms down, squeeze the upper arms. Navel to spine. And then we're going to bend the elbows a little bit. When we bend the elbows, we're directing them back towards the feet, not out to the side. So bend your elbows as far as you feel comfortable, lowering down. It's like a tricep plank. And then push back up. Bring your feet down. Sit your hips back towards the heels. They won't go all the way to the heels because we've adjusted the knees further back. We're going to keep it there. And we're going to come through again. The hips are low. And we're going to bend the elbows. Hover wherever you go. Maybe it's a very small movement. Maybe you're actually hovering above the floor. Just make sure the elbows go straight back. And then push up and sit back. When you come back with the hips, keep those hands plugged in. So you have that traction, and squeeze the upper arms, tone the upper arms. And then one more time. Forward, lower, push up. And this time we'll bring the knees closer and we'll sit back for child's pose. So we have flexion of the back. Let the head release. And let the shoulders drop. And then we'll come back up to tabletop. And we're going to lift again. We're going to tuck the toes and lift the knees. Squeeze the upper arms. And then come into downward facing dog. When you get in there, you might notice that you want to move your feet a little further back. You're welcome to do that. So tone the upper arms. Tone the upper legs. When you do that, you feel this lift from underneath. The hands push forward and the feet pull back and the elbows pull back. Strong limbs. Stay with your breath. Stay with the pose. Strengthen. Open up. We're opening up the back line of the body. And then come back down. We have our blocks here. All right, so stay where you are right here. Take the block to the left side of you and sit on the block. All right, so this can move. I'm sitting on the block. The top foot is cushioned in the bottom arch of this foot, right? So I'll turn this way. Legs are to the right. So you're gonna feel like you're sitting more heavily on the left sit bone. So allow the right femur bone to just drop down. We're gonna take a twist. So take a nice deep breath in through the nose. And turn to the right. You can take your left hand to the outer right leg, right hand to the floor. And you're toning your right rib cage. So engage over here and you're lengthening your left. So draw this inward, the right inward. Shoulders are back and down, look behind you. Keep toning around that right rib cage. Keep turning. It's work. You should feel work in your core here to keep those ribs in. And then allow yourself to stay lifted and float back to facing forward. It's almost like you put so much energy into it, when you come back, you just kind of float back. And then we'll take the legs to the other side. So the top foot rests in the arch of the bottom foot. And you're going to feel heavier on the right sits bone. And we'll start to drop the left femur bone. You'll still feel heavier on the right, but if you allow this to release a little bit, you might find a little bit more balance. And then we'll turn to the left. We're strengthening around that left rib cage, sort of drawing it towards the midline of the body. Looking behind you, shoulders back. Stay with your breath. Even the arms, I'm pulling my right arm into my left leg and I'm pushing and pulling my left arm. So I'm toning. I can feel a lot of tone happening in the arms. Drawing the shoulders back. It's a great stretch for the neck. And then we'll release and float back to the center. Excellent. Come back up off of that prop. And we'll bring them to the front of the mat. And we're gonna take a low lunge. So we'll bring the right foot through. Bring the blocks back. Left foot goes back. So even here, I have a slight bend in the elbows. I'm pulling the elbows back. When I do that, this is very anchored back here and all of this lifts and lengthens. So, and you have that tone. You're finding tone in the upper arms. Push your left foot, the top of your left foot pushes down. And then you start to tone the leg and the glute. So the arms are toning, the legs are toning, and we're opening up through the front body. There's action and inaction, non-action, right? Balance. The more you pull your arms, you get that enough strength, you almost feel like you're pulling your leg too. And then we'll sit the hips back and we'll switch our legs. Push the blocks down and pull back. Push the top of the right foot down. Feel the tone, feel the strength. Soft belly. And then we'll come back. And we're going to take a downward facing dog. We'll hover first. So tuck the toes and hover. Then we're going to keep the knees bent. Move the ribs to the thighs. And then straighten the legs. Turn those arms and legs on. Push down to the feet and the hands. And then we're going to come forward into plank. If you need to drop your knees, you can drop your knees. We'll come forward into plank. So you either have knees down or up. We're gonna bend those elbows straight back, lower. Come back up. Go back to downward dog. So we did that in the beginning with the knees down. You're welcome to do that with the knees down, because we're gonna do 2 more. So you can practice it the way we did in the beginning, or we're gonna come forward into plank. Shoulders stack over the hips. Bend the elbows straight behind you. Push up. Downward dog. Strong downward dogs, but it should almost feel restful after the plank. Come forward. Lower halfway. Come up. And push back. Release down and take your child's pose. Elbows are bent. Thumbs and index finger come to connect, or you're supporting your head so your head can rest heavily. And we'll come up. Let's take the legs forward. And actually, we'll sit on a little bit of height. So make your seat. You can have your blocks. And take the legs out in front. Find the front edge of the sits bones. Spread the sits bones. Blocks are to the side of you. The fingers can hang off of it. So we want the blocks here, shoulders down. So when you take the hands onto the box, don't let the shoulders suffocate you. Shoulders down. The elbow bend will help with that. Push down a little bit. Push your hands down. Squeeze your legs so the legs push down. And you'll have almost like, it'll feel like you're lifting, like you're almost, the sits bones start to float. All right. Lift your chest up. Draw your sacrum in and lift your chest up. It's a lot of work. And then release. And we'll spin the hands back. So the fingers will spin back. And we can come onto the tips of the fingers. Still a little bend in the elbows, and pull the elbows back. And here too, squeeze your legs. Draw that sternum forward, draw your chest up. The head will naturally follow. So don't just throw the head up to the ceiling and suffocate the back of that neck. Just let the back of the neck stay open as well. Push the fingers down, pull the elbows back, shoulders down. Lift your chest up like you want a back bend. And then come up. Keep everything, when you take the arms forward, keep everything open. And then we will allow ourselves to come forward. And if you need to bend your knees, you can bend your knees. If you feel strain here, come to more of a bent knee. Or we're coming forward and releasing down. Squeeze your legs. If your legs are straight, squeeze the legs. And we'll come back up. Let's stand. Have our blocks. And we'll open up the legs. Toes are a smidge turned in more than the heels. Start, reach your arms. So push your feet away from each other. Reach your fingers to the sky. Squeeze your quads and squeeze your upper arms. So lots of tone. Lift the arch of the foot. So make sure you're not compressing down through the arch of the foot. Now bring the hands together at heart center. And we'll come forward. Take the blocks. So remember, the hips are in alignment with the heels. The hips are not going to move forward. Our upper body is going to move forward, but our lower body is going to stay the same. So we slide the blocks out. So we're coming into this downward dog upper body. And you can push the palms down and lift your legs up. Toes are light. So push the palms down and lift your legs up. And notice how the spine will drop more towards going through those thighs with that action. Strong legs and arms. And we'll come back up. Bring the hands to the hips. Hinge up. Turn the toes to face out. And we'll come back to reaching. Maybe I'll turn to the side without thrusting the pelvis forward too much. Can we lift the ribs up? And then come forward. Heel toe the feet in. And put the part. And then from here, we'll roll down. So chin to chest. Roll the shoulders forward. Start to bend the knees. So we're gonna have a large bend in the knees. Allow the head to hang and the arms just drape. The hips are still over the heels. Soften the toes. Even with the knees bent, you can have an upward movement of the sits bones. So find that upward movement of the sits bones, keeping the knees bent, and you'll feel more of a forward fold with the upper body. And we'll come back to hands and knees. We're going to take just some lateral flexion. So your back will be rounded. And then open up through the right side like you're hugging around a pole on the left side. And then come through center. Open up the left side like you're hugging around a pole with the right side. And just go back and forth a few times. Again, you're in flexion. And just opening up laterally. Hands are pushing down. We have some tone in the upper arms. And then we'll come into our extension, lifting the chest up. And flexion, so cat-cow. And then we'll sit. Briefly, just to seal our practice, honor ourselves. Close the eyes. Palms together. Drop the chin to the chest. And bring the head back up. And blink the eyes open. Okay. Namaste. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and a fantastic weekend.